The story of David and Goliath stands as one of the most iconic tales from the Bible, transcending religious boundaries to become a universal metaphor for the triumph of the underdog. This ancient narrative from approximately 3,000 years ago continues to resonate with audiences today, inspiring countless adaptations in literature, art, and popular culture. The battle between a shepherd boy and a mighty warrior represents more than just an unlikely victory. It embodies themes of courage, faith, and the notion that physical strength isn't the only measure of power. Today, we'll delve into this remarkable story, exploring its historical context, characters, and enduring significance that has made it a cornerstone of Western civilization. To understand the David and Goliath narrative properly, we must first examine the historical setting. Around 1050 BCE, the Israelites were transitioning from a loose confederation of tribes to a unified monarchy under their first king, Saul. This period was marked by frequent conflicts with neighboring peoples, particularly the Philistines, who possessed superior military technology, including iron weapons and chariots. The Philistines, who occupied the coastal plains of what is now southern Israel and Gaza, presented a constant threat to the Israelite settlements in the hill country. The Philistines weren't just occasional raiders, they were a sophisticated maritime civilization with connections to the Aegean world. Archaeological evidence suggests they were part of the Sea Peoples who migrated to the eastern Mediterranean around the 12th century BCE, bringing with them advanced metallurgical skills that gave them a significant military advantage. Their five major cities, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath, formed a powerful pentapolis that dominated the coastal region. Goliath, according to the biblical account, came from Gath, one of these major Philistine centers. King Saul, meanwhile, was struggling with his own inner demons. The Bible describes how the Spirit of God had departed from him, leaving him prone to fits of depression and rage. Despite being physically impressive himself, described as standing head and shoulders above everyone else, Saul's confidence was waning. His army, though numerous, lacked the military technology and training of their Philistine counterparts. This technological disadvantage created a psychological barrier that would prove difficult to overcome. The setting for the confrontation between the armies was the Valley of Elah, a strategic location about 15 miles west of Bethlehem. This natural corridor connected the Philistine coastal plain with the Judean hills, making it a logical invasion route. The valley, with its gentle slopes and wadi, dry riverbed, running through the center, provided an ideal battlefield where both armies could face each other across the ravine without immediately engaging in full combat. It was in this context that the Philistine champion Goliath emerged. The biblical text describes him as a giant, standing 6 cubits and a span, tall, approximately 9 feet 6 inches, though some ancient manuscripts put his height at 4 cubits and a span, or about 6 feet 9 inches. Even at the lower estimate, Goliath would have been remarkably tall for that era. His physical description is detailed. He wore a bronze helmet, a coat of mail weighing 5,000 shekels, about 125 pounds, bronze greaves on his legs, and carried a javelin with a 600-shekel iron spearhead. His shield-bearer walked ahead of him, adding to his imposing presence. Goliath's challenge to the Israelites followed an ancient practice known as representative combat, where two champions would fight on behalf of their armies to avoid full-scale battle and its accompanying casualties. For 40 days, morning and evening, Goliath stepped forward and taunted the Israelites, challenging them to provide a champion who could face him in single combat. The stakes were high. If the Israelite champion won, the Philistines would become their servants. If Goliath won, the Israelites would serve the Philistines. King Saul and his army were paralyzed with fear. Despite offering great rewards, wealth, exemption from taxes, and the hand of his daughter in marriage, no Israelite warrior was willing to face the Philistine champion. This standoff created a crisis of confidence among the Israelites, reflecting a deeper spiritual crisis. From a theological perspective, their fear represented a lack of faith in God's protection and providence. Enter David, the youngest son of Jesse from Bethlehem. Unlike the narrative of a simple shepherd boy stumbling into a battlefield, David's introduction is more nuanced. According to the biblical account, David had already been anointed in secret by the prophet Samuel as the future king of Israel, though this remained hidden from public knowledge. He had also served in Saul's court as a musician, soothing the king during his depressive episodes, though it appears Saul did not immediately recognize him on the battlefield. When the confrontation occurred, David was not part of the army, but had been sent by his father to bring provisions to his 3 older brothers who were serving under Saul. Upon arriving at the camp, David witnessed Goliath's challenge and was shocked by the fear it instilled in the Israelite ranks. His response was fundamentally different from the other Israelites. Instead of seeing Goliath's physical prowess, David focused on the spiritual affront. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David's confidence came from his experiences as a shepherd, protecting his flocks from predators. He recounted to Saul how he had killed both lions and bears that attacked his sheep, attributing these victories not to his own strength, but to divine assistance. This pastoral background is significant. Shepherds in ancient Israel were not the romanticized figures often portrayed in art, but hardy individuals accustomed to solitude, danger, and the need for quick thinking in life-threatening situations. Despite initial reluctance, Saul eventually agreed to let David face Goliath. In a scene rich with symbolic meaning, Saul offered David his own armor, which the young shepherd tried on but rejected as unsuitable. This rejection represented more than practical considerations. It symbolized David's refusal to fight according to conventional military wisdom. Instead, he chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream and approached Goliath with just his sling, a shepherd's tool that in skilled hands could be a formidable weapon. The sling, often misunderstood as a child's toy, was actually a deadly weapon in ancient warfare. Skilled slingers could hit targets at distances of up to 200 yards with force comparable to a modern handgun. Archaeological evidence shows that sling stones were standard military equipment in many ancient armies, including those of the Assyrians, Egyptians, and Persians. David's choice of weapon, therefore, wasn't as mismatched as it might initially appear. When Goliath saw the youthful David approaching without conventional armor or weapons, he was insulted, asking, "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" The Philistine cursed David by his gods and promised to feed his flesh to the birds and beasts. David's response reveals the theological heart of the narrative. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. The actual combat was brief and decisive. As Goliath moved forward, David ran toward him, took a stone from his bag, slung it, and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into Goliath's forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. David then took Goliath's own sword and cut off his head, fulfilling his promise that the whole world would know that there is a God in Israel. The psychological impact of this victory was immediate and profound. The Philistine army, having lost their champion and with him their confidence, fled in panic. The Israelites, suddenly emboldened, pursued them as far as the gates of Ekron and Gath, plundering their camps along the way. What could have been a devastating defeat became a decisive victory, changing the course of the conflict between these two peoples. From a historical perspective, this encounter can be understood as a turning point in Israelite fortunes against the Philistines. While they would continue to face conflicts, David's victory marked the beginning of a shift in power dynamics. Later, as king, David would further diminish Philistine influence, establishing Israel as the dominant regional power during his reign and that of his son Solomon. The theological implications of the story are equally significant. The narrative emphasizes that victory comes not through conventional strength or military might, but through faith in God and alignment with divine purposes. David is presented as the faithful servant who trusts in God's power rather than human capabilities. This theme resonates throughout biblical literature, from the Exodus story to the New Testament emphasis on the power of faith. Psychologically, the tale explores the nature of courage, showing how David's different perspective allowed him to see opportunity where others saw only threat. His confidence came not from arrogance, but from a track record of facing dangers and overcoming them with divine help. This combination of experience and faith gave him the mental fortitude to face a seemingly insurmountable challenge. The David and Goliath story has left an indelible mark on Western culture, becoming shorthand for any situation where an underdog faces overwhelming odds. Sports commentators invoke it when describing unexpected victories. Business literature uses it to inspire entrepreneurs challenging established corpos.